Hello everyone and welcome to my flipped classroom response video. Does the flipped classroom work for all learners? Research shows that it does work for students. This is because lower level Bloom's taxonomy skills, including understanding and remembering, occur outside of the class. And this is seen through things such as videos provided by the instructor. Therefore, this allows for higher order thinking skills, such as evaluating, synthesizing, etc., to occur within the classroom. These ideas follow cognitivist and constructivist approaches presented by Piaget and Vygotsky. Based on our readings, I also found Kolb's theory of experiential learning to be really prevalent in this. Students need to be able to experience what it is that they're studying in order to become more engaged and therefore more likely to master it. In addition, it can be used in all content areas, which includes science and social studies. One study that I read found that students were more likely to apply critical thinking skills in a classroom setting than in a traditional setting. And the study occurred in Greece to a group of 5th grade students studying the Byzantine Empire. And what was really interesting was that it was a 5th grade classroom. When one thinks about a flipped classroom, they often think of students in maybe high school or more at the collegiate level. And it was just really interesting to see that students, while it was a social studies class, the dates were a part of both the traditional classroom and the flipped classroom in the study. Students in a flipped classroom were still slightly more likely to memorize those dates, but like their critical thinking was much more prevalent in students in a flipped classroom than those in maybe the traditional setting. Just some things that I think one needs to keep in mind with a flipped classroom. I am a 1st grade teacher and I work in a school where students might not come from the most affluent families. So therefore, if one is going to do this, they need to ensure that their students do have access to technology at home. If you're going to be creating a lot of videos, students probably do need to have internet access. And one of the studies that I've read, that's definitely something that needs to happen. Students also need things like a computer. So one needs to know where their students come from. In addition, students need to be intrinsically motivated. I find as a primary school teacher, you really need to really encourage them to take ownership over their learning, and that can be a problem for students in a flipped classroom who are really learning in a way for its own sake. Obviously, as an educator, we think that there's a major reason for why they're learning, but it's getting students to be intrinsically motivated that might be a bit of a challenge. In addition, students need to have their parents' support, so therefore the parents should be supporting you in this. Flipped classroom is a new idea, so one needs to ensure that they have their support. Students in a K-2 setting might benefit from adapted versions of it where the teacher provides more scaffolding. As a 1st grade teacher, a lot of the skills that flipped classroom uses, such as collaboration and critical thinking, a lot of those things are in their basic stages. As a teacher, it is my job to help them develop certain social skills and promote that higher ordered thinking. So if one is going to do this in that setting, there needs to be a lot more scaffolding, and it might take a little bit longer than it might in a high school or collegiate level, just because those collaboration skills are probably a little bit more defined and more understood by the students. And this also leads to the idea that when one is doing a flipped classroom, a teacher needs to have the firm routines set into place before implementing it. Here are a few examples of flipped classroom activities. The first one is one that I did in a 6th grade setting. This is where students were able to read about different animals and habitats. And they did this more on their own. And then through this time, through their homework, I was able to introduce them to the idea of what an invasive species was. And they would watch videos, and we would just have conversations in class, which then later led to them developing prototypes of ways that one might get rid of an invasive species in a real world setting. So for example, we talked about an invasive species existing on the Mississippi River, and students used a makerspace in order to develop prototypes out of recyclable materials, and then developed a PowerPoint with their group to promote that solution. And in the end, students were able to debate based off their own prototypes which might be the most effective solution. And it was just really rewarding as a teacher to see them actively engaging in coming up with really great ideas to help do this. The second one is an idea that I came up with just as a history major. In undergrad, I found the American Revolution to be really interesting. And I had a teacher kind of pose this broad question, which was, could the American Revolution be avoided, or could it have been avoided? And I would take that idea and I would turn this into a flipped classroom through creating online videos and provide them the dates and major events. This might happen in a high school setting. Students would use class time to look at primary sources to identify causes on the United States side, but also the Great Britain side. And students would be able to draw inferences from major events to answer this essential question. And a resource that I'm going to mention in a second that to promote this debate of whether or not it could have been avoided might be a resource such as Narrable. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Finally, some tools. Edpuzzle is a great use to provide students just a quick way to see whether or not they're understanding your video. By posing a question, they get that immediate feedback, and you also get, as an instructor, get access to that feedback, which is really helpful. I've used crash course videos for homework assignments when I'm trying to introduce a new topic, and the students find it engaging, and it covers a variety of topics, and you can also use crash course videos in an Edpuzzle video so that you can pose additional questions. Camtasia is a great resource as well, as it provides students videos of yourself teaching content, and you might use it through a learning management system such as Canvas. And finally, Narrable, as I mentioned before, is a great way for students to maybe video record themselves having a debate, or just providing their points when they are engaging in a debate in more of a summative way. Here are the references that I've used for my research this week. Thank you so much for watching my video.